In 1973, Harold Pruitt in Hardin County, Tennessee, wired his own home with copper salvaged from a demolished schoolhouse. The house passed inspection for 31 years. In 2004, his grandson tried the same on a detached garage and was told he could not touch the wire, not for lack of skill, but because the state had reclassified residential electrical work as a licensed trade. The inspector who stopped him earned his certification in 2 days. Harold Pruitt wired that house with 40 years of knowing. That knowing is now illegal in 22 states. They did not take it all at once. It happened in ordinances, in health codes passed at 8 in the morning in meetings nobody attended. One law at a time, the things self-reliant Americans had always done, grown their food, collected their water, fixed their homes with their own hands, were reclassified from rights into violations. We did not notice because we had already stopped doing most of them. That was not an accident. Number 22 kept a family's milk cold for 4 days without electricity and is now a regulated commercial food operation in 11 states. Number 15 saves a homeowner $4,000 in an afternoon and has been made legally impossible without a licensed professional in most jurisdictions. And number 1, the most fundamental act a free person can perform, has had more bureaucratic layers stacked against it than any single law could accomplish alone. These 25 skills were not hobbies. They were the operating system of a free people, the ability to feed yourself, house yourself, heal yourself, and trade your labor without asking permission. Hit that subscribe button. Let us count down the 25 banned self-reliance skills the government quietly made illegal while nobody was paying attention. Number 25. Selling raw milk directly from your cow. You scalded the pail, strained through clean cloth, and set the jar in the cold cellar within the hour. Clean hands, a healthy cow, no label, no inspector. For a widow in 1938 in central Wisconsin, 2 jerseys paid the rent. That milk was a relationship between neighbors, not a product, until licensed dairy regulations reduced farms by 90% and made the transaction illegal in 11 states. The pail was clean. The law arrived anyway. Number 24. Butchering your own livestock for sale. You hung the carcass before first light, split it down the spine, and worked every cut with a boning knife sharpened the night before. Nothing wasted, everything weighed by noon. For an Appalachian family in 1944, hog killing day fed every neighbor on the road, a practice that federal law now prohibits without a United States Department of Agriculture inspected facility, ensuring small producers disappear and large processors consolidate. He did not lose the skill. He lost the right to use it. Number 23. Building your own home on your own land without a permit. You set cornerstones by the water level, framed the walls, raised them with neighbors on a Saturday, and chinked the gaps with clay and straw, worked in by hand. A father in eastern Tennessee in 1932, with 40 acres of timber, built his own house in 4 months. Yet that act is now a misdemeanor in most jurisdictions, and the man who laid his foundation must still hire a licensed electrician to wire a switch he could do himself in 8 minutes. The home his hands built is legal. The wire inside it is not. Number 22. Storing fresh milk in a spring house. You laid flat creek stones around the spring on the north slope, set a split-shake roof overhead, and kept jars submerged to the neck in 50-degree running water. 4 cold days without a single watt. A farm wife in 1925 in Western Virginia built this to feed 6 children while her husband worked the mines, Yet selling milk stored this way now violates food safety code because commercial dairy regulations apply without adjustment to a woman with a spring. Not primitive. A working method that needed no electricity and no permission. Number 21. Operating a small still for personal use. You ran the mash through a copper coil, discarded the first half cup, kept what ran clear, and cut it with clean water. That was the process, and that was the felony. For Appalachian families, a single jug was currency, medicine, and warmth. Yet producing distilled spirits for your own cabinet is a federal felony, while home brewing carries no penalty. That distinction was established by Alexander Hamilton in 1791 for tax revenue, not safety. The whiskey was not the crime. The missing revenue was. You dried yarrow until the stems snapped, pressed the crumbled leaves against the wound with steady hands, and held pressure until the bleeding stopped. She knew the result without knowing the chemistry. For coalfield families 40 miles from any hospital, a granny woman in McDowell County in 1935 was not an alternative to medical care, but the only care available. Yet applying herbal treatment for money is unlicensed practice in all 50 states. She did not lose the knowledge. She lost the legal standing to use it. You sat the child at the kitchen table after breakfast, reading first, always reading first, then numbers. Eggs in the basket, boards in the fence, miles to town. For a mother in rural Montana in 1912, whose nearest school washed out every April, the kitchen table was the school. Yet by 1970, homeschooling was illegal in most states, and 30 years of litigation were required to establish the right in all 50 states. The kitchen table was always a classroom. The permission slip is new. Number 18. Selling home-cooked food without a commercial kitchen license. You worked lard and flour with cold hands until it came together just short of smooth, rolled it thin, crimped the edge, and pulled it when the crust went the color of a paper bag. A Depression-era widow in rural Georgia kept the lights on, selling 12 pies a week at the end of her driveway, until 11 states made any homemade food sold for money illegal regardless of volume. It was not a food safety problem. It was a woman making money without anyone's cut. There are people alive right now carrying knowledge that will die with them, not because they are unwilling to share it, but because nobody has asked. A man in Breathitt County, Kentucky, is 84 years old. He can wire a house, cure a ham, set a broken bone, and name every plant on any ridge in eastern Kentucky that stops a fever. He learned standing next to his father before any of it required a license. When he is gone, the instinct goes with him. Not the information. The confidence that looks at a broken thing and reaches for a solution without first reaching for a phone. Number 17. Grazing livestock on unfenced public land. You read the grass before moving the herd. Deep green meant growth, pale yellow meant the root was stressed, and you moved before they grazed below 4 inches, because below that, the ground would not recover for 2 years. A Nevada cattle family in 1880 followed the grass across open federal land as a matter of survival, a right the Taylor Grazing Act of 1934 converted into a revocable BLM permit, administered by people who do not live on the land. The land still speaks. The permit decides whether anyone may listen. Number 16. Fishing on water crossing your own land without a license. You cut a cane pole 6 feet long, dropped the nightcrawler into the bend where catfish held in the shade, and lifted when the line moved sideways. Every boy near water knew this before he was 8. For a Mississippi farm family in 1930, the creek fed the household the same way the garden did. Yet state fishing licenses apply the same rules to a man on his own bank as to a commercial charter. He owns the land. He does not own the right to eat what lives in it. Number 15. Digging a well on your own property without a permit. You drove an iron rod into the earth 12 inches at a time, felt for cold moisture, dug with a spade, and shored the walls with timber planks until water seeped in at the bottom. For a Plains family in 1905, a working well was the difference between a farm and a campsite, yet today it requires a licensed driller, a state permit, and in western states, a water rights filing before the first foot of casing goes in. The water table has not moved. The right to reach it did. In 2023, the Institute for Justice documented over 800 licensed occupations at the state level, and in 1950, there were fewer than 50. The average license today demands 14 months of training and $900 in fees before a person may legally practice a skill she already has. The home repair industry generates $600 billion annually, and it depends on you not knowing how to fix your own pipe or wire your own switch. In 1950, the average household spent nearly zero on professional home repair. By 2023, that figure exceeded $3,000 a year. The houses did not get harder to fix. The people inside them lost the knowledge of how to try. Number 14. Curing and smoking meat without commercial facility approval. You rubbed coarse salt, brown sugar, black pepper, and saltpeter into every surface, and you hung the ham over cool hickory smoke for 6 weeks, more smoke than heat. Then you let it hang 6 months before the first cut. No refrigeration was needed, and it lasted a full year. For a mountain family in North Carolina in 1930, 20 hams in November meant the family ate through winter. That practice is now illegal without inspected facility processing, a requirement that eliminates the small producer. The smoke has not changed. The permission to sell what it produces has been priced out of reach. Number 13. Operating a community sawmill without environmental permits. You set the log on the carriage, locked it with the iron dogs, and fed it into the blade. A clean cut through dry oak screamed high and steady, while a blade binding in wet wood dropped in pitch and told your hands to slow. For a timber family in 1950 in Appalachian, Virginia, the community mill was neighborhood infrastructure, a service now requiring environmental permits the moment a board changes hands. The log is his. The right to mill it for his neighbor now requires paperwork no one needed before. Number 12. Attending a birth without a nursing license. You read the baby's position by feel, with your hands flat on the abdomen. You guided the delivery, supported the head as it crowned, eased the shoulders through one at a time, and stayed 2 hours after to confirm the bleeding was normal. For coalfield communities in 1925, with no hospital within 40 miles, a midwife who had attended hundreds of births was medical care, not an alternative to it, yet direct entry midwifery is now illegal in 25 states. The baby does not know the difference. The law has decided it does. Number 11. Growing food in your front yard. You turned the bed to 12 inches, worked in compost with both hands, set tomato transplants 18 inches apart, and drove a stake behind each plant. 40 square feet yielded 30 quarts, canned by September. In 2011, a woman in Oak Park, Michigan, faced 93 days in jail for exactly this. The Victory Garden campaigns of both world wars had asked Americans to plant every inch of lawn, including the front yard. The tomato grows the same way regardless of what the ordinance says. Number 10. trading labor for goods without reporting it. You replaced 12 rotted fence posts and tightened 300 feet of wire while he put up 4 cords at your woodpile. 2 neighbors, 2 afternoons, no money, no invoice, no receipt. For farming communities in 1930, this was the primary economy. Yet the IRS considers both sides of that exchange reportable gross income subject to self-employment tax. That rule has been in place since 1954. The trade predates the government that taxes it by several thousand years. Number 9. Collecting rainwater on your own property. You placed a barrel below the downspout, fitted a screen over the top, and ran a short hose to the garden bed. When it rained, the barrel filled. When the garden needed water, you opened the spigot. Free, no bill. Until 2016, Colorado prohibited this outright. The state held that rain was legally allocated to downstream rights holders before it reached your hands, a doctrine built for large agricultural water rights, but applied to a woman with a barrel. Colorado now allows a maximum of 2 barrels. It fell on her roof. The law said it was not hers. Number 8. Treating your own livestock with prescription medications. You checked the animal's temperature, drew the antibiotic into the syringe, injected into the neck muscle, not the rump where an abscess ruins the meat, tagged the animal with the withdrawal date, and checked twice daily until the fever broke. For a Kansas cattle farmer in 1965, the nearest vet was 40 miles away and charged more than the drug. Yet the Veterinary Feed Directive of 2017 moved common livestock antibiotics to prescription only, making the barn cabinet a violation. The knowledge has not changed. The permission to act on it now requires a fee. Number 7. Running your own plumbing. You cleaned pipe and fitting with emery cloth until they shone, brushed flux on both surfaces, touched solder to the joint, not the flame, and watched it wick in by capillary action until a bright ring showed all the way around. 12 seconds, a joint that outlasts the house. For a man in 1948 who framed his own walls, this was simply the next task. Yet most jurisdictions today require a licensed plumber and a permit costing up to $800 to replace a water heater. The pipe is his. The permission to connect it is not. Number 6. Saving and replanting your own seed. You let the best bean plants go past eating, all the way to dry and papery. You shelled them onto a clean cloth and stored them labeled in pencil with the variety, the year, and the planting rate noted. You planted them in spring, and with each season of selection, they improved. For a farm family in 1936, the seed jar was the most important object in the house. Modern hybrid seeds do not breed true, and they must be purchased new each year. That dependency is the business model. She saved the seed. They engineered a seed that cannot be saved. Number 5. Running a roadside food stand without permits. You squeezed 20 lemons, stirred in simple syrup, filled the pitcher with cold water and ice, wrote your price on cardboard, and set up at the end of the driveway. 7 years old, you made the product, set the price, and kept the coins. For a girl in rural Tennessee in 1952, this was the first experience of earning. Between 2011 and 2019, children running lemonade stands were cited in 5 states because a food permit now applies to any food sold to the public. The permit arrived the moment somebody noticed money changing hands without a cut. Number 4. Living without grid connection on your own property. You powered the house from batteries charged by roof-mounted solar, collected rainwater in a cistern filtered to the tap, and used a composting toilet that needed no water and no sewer line, no grid electricity, no monthly bill. In 2014, a woman in Cape Coral, Florida, was ordered from her off-grid home despite a fully functioning system because municipal connections are required as a condition of legal occupancy in a growing number of jurisdictions, a rule that protects utility revenue, not the occupant. The house was standing. The law said that was not enough. Number 3. Practicing traditional medicine within your own community. You bruised fresh plantain leaves between your palms until the juice released, pressed them against the infection, bound them with clean cloth, and changed the poultice every 8 hours, knowing from 5 generations of practice when what you held was beyond your reach. For border families in South Texas in 1955, a curandera was the medical system, not a supplement to it, yet telling a patient an herb will help her is practicing medicine without a license in all 50 states. The tradition did not fail its people. The law simply refuses to recognize it as knowledge. Number 2. Digging and using a root cellar. You dug into the north-facing hillside for earth insulation, lined the walls with stone, and built a low intake and a high exhaust so cold air moved through without temperature swings. Potatoes in sand, apples in straw, canned jars by date, 32 to 40 degrees without a single watt. For a farm wife in 1942 in northern Minnesota who fed 6 children from October through June, this was the household food system. Yet zoning codes now prohibit below-grade structures without permits that cost more than the food they preserve. The hillside is still there, but the right to use it has conditions now. Number 1. Knowing how to take care of yourself without asking anyone's permission. That is all this list has ever been, the accumulated knowledge of how to grow food, find water, build shelter, treat illness, and manage land, held in the hands of a person who has practiced it, applied without license or inspection to the business of keeping a family alive. Not one of these skills required a degree when first practiced. The permit came later, followed the competence, and declared it insufficient. It requires no certificate. It never did. There was a county commission meeting in 1967 where a building code was amended. There was a state health ruling in 1974 that reclassified home food production. There was a federal directive in 1986 that put a veterinary compound behind a prescription wall. One ordinance at a time, the things a free person had always done with her own hands became things requiring permission. The permissions multiplied, the skills atrophied. A generation arrived unable to do what their grandparents had done without thinking, not because they lacked the hands, but because they lacked the confidence that comes from using those hands 10,000 times on real problems. That confidence is still recoverable. The skills have not gone anywhere. What does not wait for the law is the knowledge. Start there. The permission can catch up.